I met two people last month who completely changed how I think about aging. The first was Sarah, a 92-year-old former teacher who still plays competitive bridge, reads a novel every week, and recently learned Spanish just for fun. The second was Michael, only 67, who struggles to remember his grandchildren's names and needs help managing his daily medications. Same species, dramatically different brain aging. Why? Today, I'm going to reveal the science behind why some people maintain razor-sharp minds into their 90s, while others experience significant decline decades earlier. And here's what might surprise you. Genetics accounts for only about 30% of brain aging. The rest, the majority, is determined by factors you can control starting today. If you care about maintaining your mental sharpness for life, this might be the most important video you watch this year. When we think about aging, we often focus on the physical, wrinkles, gray hair, joint pain. But for most of us, what we fear most isn't looking older. It's losing our mental edge, our memories, our very selves. This fear isn't unfounded. Currently, 1 in 9 Americans over 65 has Alzheimer's disease. But here's what those statistics don't tell you. Cognitive decline is not inevitable, and in many cases, it's not even normal. The scientific community has been studying so-called super agers, people in their 80s and 90s whose brains function like those decades younger, and what they've discovered is revolutionary. The difference between those who stay sharp and those who decline isn't luck or just good genes. It's specific lifestyle factors and habits that, when applied consistently, create what neuroscientists now call cognitive reserve, essentially a buffer against brain aging. What makes this topic so urgent is that brain changes begin decades before symptoms appear. The decisions you're making in your 40s, 50s, and 60s are literally shaping your brain's future. And contrary to popular belief, the occasional crossword puzzle isn't enough. The research shows that protecting your brain requires a multifaceted approach, addressing 6 key areas that work synergistically. Today, I'll break down these 6 factors that separate the super agers from those who experience premature cognitive decline. You'll learn exactly what you can start doing today, regardless of your age, to build your own cognitive reserve. Some of these strategies might surprise you, and at least one goes against conventional wisdom you've probably heard for years. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just what to do, but why it works, and how to implement these strategies in your daily life. Before we dive into these 6 critical factors, I want you to know that the final factor we'll discuss is perhaps the most surprising, and the one most people completely overlook. Yet research from the Harvard Study of Adult Development, which has tracked participants for over 80 years, found it to be the single strongest predictor of who will maintain cognitive health into advanced age. Throughout this video, I'll also share specific actionable steps you can implement immediately. These aren't vague suggestions, but concrete practices backed by research from institutions like the Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, and the National Institute on Aging. Stay with me until the end, and I'll also share a simple 30-day plan that incorporates all 6 factors in a manageable way. This plan alone has helped thousands of my clients begin building their cognitive reserve, regardless of their starting point. Let's begin with the first key factor that separates superagers from those who experience early decline. The first factor that dramatically influences how your brain ages is physical exercise, but not just any exercise. Research has revealed specific types of movement that benefit the brain more than others. When I met Elaine, a 79-year-old participant in a study I was conducting, I was stunned to learn she had only started exercising at age 67. Before that, she'd been mostly sedentary her whole life. I thought it was too late to make a difference, she told me. Yet brain scans showed her hippocampus, the memory center of the brain, was more typical of someone in their 50s. The change began when her doctor told her she was showing early signs of cognitive decline, and she decided to try a combination of walking and light strength training 4 times a week. Within 6 months, her cognitive tests showed measurable improvement. Here's why this matters. Exercise doesn't just benefit your heart and muscles, it fundamentally changes your brain. When you exercise, your body releases a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which neuroscientists often call fertilizer for the brain. This protein stimulates the growth of new neurons and strengthens the connections between existing ones. Studies show that regular exercisers have hippocampi that are 2% larger annually than non-exercisers, a significant difference when it comes to memory function. The impact is profound. People who engage in regular physical activity have a 33% lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia than sedentary individuals. And if you're thinking, I've never been athletic, remember Elaine's story. It's never too late to start seeing benefits. Ask yourself, am I moving my body in ways that protect my brain? If you spend most of your day sitting, are you willing to make small changes that could dramatically alter your brain's future? The good news is that you don't need to become a marathon runner. Research shows that just 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week, like brisk walking, plus 2 sessions of strength training provides optimal brain benefits. That's about 30 minutes 5 days a week, less time than many of us spend scrolling through social media each day. The second factor that separates those who stay sharp from those who decline is nutritional intelligence. Understanding that what you eat literally builds your brain, for better or worse. I remember interviewing Robert, an 86-year-old retired engineer with remarkable mental clarity. When I asked about his diet, he laughed and said, "I was eating terribly until my 60s. Fast food, processed everything. Then I read about the Mediterranean diet and decided to experiment on myself." He described how within months of changing his eating habits, his thinking became clearer and his energy improved. 25 years later, he attributes his continued sharpness largely to his dietary choices. Here's why this matters. Your brain is extraordinarily metabolically active, using about 20% of your body's energy, despite being only 2% of your body weight. It needs high-quality fuel, and research increasingly shows that certain dietary patterns significantly affect brain health. The most compelling evidence supports the MIND diet, Mediterranean-intervention for neurodegenerative delay, which combines aspects of the Mediterranean and DASH diets. Studies following thousands of older adults found that those who adhered closely to the MIND diet had brains that functioned as if they were 7.5 years younger than those with poor dietary habits. Think about that. A dietary pattern that can essentially turn back your brain's clock by nearly a decade. The impact of poor nutritional choices is equally dramatic. High sugar, highly processed diets are associated with increased brain inflammation, reduced brain volume, and accelerated cognitive decline. One study found that people with high blood sugar levels, even in the non-diabetic range, experienced more significant hippocampal shrinkage over time. Ask yourself, is my current diet building my brain or accelerating its aging? Am I regularly consuming the foods research has linked to better brain health? The key is not perfection, but consistency. The MIND diet emphasizes leafy greens. Aim for 6+ servings weekly. Other vegetables, berries, especially blueberries, nuts, olive oil, whole grains, fish, beans, and poultry, while limiting red meat, butter, cheese, pastries, and fried foods. Even moderate adherence to this pattern shows benefits, so small sustainable changes can make a significant difference in how your brain ages. The third factor that determines whether you'll stay sharp for life is cognitive challenge, but not in the way most people think. When I spoke with Vivian, a 91-year-old former accountant who still volunteers preparing tax returns, she shared something fascinating. "Crossword puzzles got boring because I got too good at them," she explained. "I need to keep learning things that are actually difficult for me." This led her to take up digital photography at 85, which required learning new technology, artistic principles, and photo editing software, all significantly outside her comfort zone. Here's why this matters. Your brain thrives on challenge, but not just any challenge. The key concept here is desirable difficulty, activities that push you just beyond your current abilities. When something feels difficult but achievable with effort, your brain responds by creating new neural pathways and strengthening existing ones. The research is clear. It's not enough to do the same mental activities repeatedly. A massive study involving over 3,000 older adults found that while brain training games improve performance on those specific games, the benefits didn't transfer to overall cognitive function or daily activities. What did work? Learning new skills that incorporate multiple brain functions simultaneously. The impact of this approach is substantial. Adults who continuously engage in novel, challenging activities show significantly better maintenance of cognitive function. One particularly interesting study showed that older adults who learned complex new skills like digital photography or quilting displayed improved memory function compared to those who participated in social activities or did simpler puzzles and games. Ask yourself, when was the last time I learned something truly challenging? Am I still growing my skills and knowledge, or am I intellectually comfortable most of the time? The good news is that challenging your brain can be enjoyable. It's about finding the sweet spot between frustration and boredom. Effective activities include learning a new language, picking up a musical instrument, mastering a complex craft, taking courses in unfamiliar subjects, or learning technology skills that don't come naturally to you. Remember, the point isn't to become an expert, but to embrace the process of struggling with something new. It's precisely this productive struggle that builds and maintains your cognitive reserve. The fourth factor that dramatically influences cognitive aging is sleep quality, a factor that many high achievers unfortunately sacrifice. James, a 72-year-old, who showed signs of significant cognitive impairment, told me he'd built his successful business on 5 hours of sleep per night for decades. "Sleep when you're dead," was his motto. When his neurologist convinced him to address his undiagnosed sleep apnea and extend his sleep to 7 hours nightly, the improvement in his cognitive testing was so dramatic that his doctor initially thought there must have been a testing error. 6 months of proper sleep had reversed what appeared to be early dementia. Here's why this matters. Sleep isn't just rest for your brain. It's an active biological process essential for cognitive function. During deep sleep, your brain clears out beta amyloid, a protein associated with Alzheimer's disease, through the recently discovered glymphatic system, essentially your brain's waste removal process. This cleanup mainly happens during slow-wave sleep, which many people get too little of due to sleep disorders, alcohol use, which reduces slow-wave sleep, or simply not allowing enough time for sleep. The research is compelling. A study published in the journal Science found that even one night of poor sleep led to increased beta amyloid buildup in brain regions associated with Alzheimer's disease. Longitudinal studies show that people with untreated sleep disorders like sleep apnea have a 26% higher risk of cognitive decline. The impact of improving sleep can be equally powerful in the positive direction. When older adults with insomnia received cognitive behavioral therapy for their sleep problems, they showed improved attention, concentration, and executive function within 3 months. Ask yourself, am I giving my brain the sleep it needs to perform its essential maintenance? Do I wake feeling restored, or am I chronically tired? Have I addressed potential sleep disorders like sleep apnea or insomnia? Practical steps include maintaining a consistent sleep schedule, even on weekends, creating a dark, cool sleeping environment, avoiding screens for at least an hour before bed. Blue light suppresses melatonin, limiting alcohol and caffeine, and getting screened for sleep disorders if you snore loudly or never feel rested despite adequate time in bed. Remember, the "I'll sleep when I'm dead" mentality might actually bring that day closer, especially for your cognitive health. The fifth factor that separates those who maintain cognitive vitality from those who decline is effective stress management. This isn't about eliminating stress entirely, but about how you respond to it. I'll never forget interviewing Maria, an 88-year-old Holocaust survivor who had endured unimaginable trauma, yet maintained remarkable cognitive clarity. "It's not what happens to you," she told me, "it's how you carry it." Despite her history, she had developed robust stress regulation skills through daily meditation and gratitude practices. Brain scans showed her hippocampus was typical of someone decades younger, despite her traumatic history. Here's why this matters. Chronic stress floods your brain with cortisol, which is directly toxic to hippocampal cells, the exact brain region essential for forming new memories. Over time, unmanaged stress actually reshapes your brain, shrinking the hippocampus while enlarging the amygdala, your brain's alarm system, making you even more reactive to stress. The science is clear. A Yale University study found that even short, daily meditation sessions increased both gray matter neuron bodies and white matter connections in brain regions involved in learning and memory. Meanwhile, people with chronically high cortisol levels show accelerated brain aging of up to 6.3% compared to those with better stress management. The impact works both ways. Chronic unmanaged stress contributes to inflammation, reduced brain volume, and impaired formation of new neurons. Conversely, effective stress management techniques have been shown to not only prevent this damage, but actually promote neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells, even in older adults. Ask yourself, how do I typically respond to stress? Do I have effective methods to regulate my nervous system when I'm overwhelmed? Has stress become my default state rather than an occasional response? Practical approaches with strong evidence include mindfulness meditation. Start with just 5–10 minutes daily. Regular time in nature. The Japanese practice of forest bathing has been shown to lower cortisol. Physical exercise, deep breathing techniques, and cognitive reframing, learning to interpret stressful events in less threatening ways. Remember that stress management isn't just a luxury or self-indulgence, it's essential preventative maintenance for your brain. As one neuroscientist put, meditation isn't just about peace of mind, it's about changing the structure and function of your brain. The sixth and perhaps most surprising factor that determines cognitive longevity is social connection, the quality and quantity of your relationships with others. At 94, Eleanor attributes her mental sharpness primarily to her rich social life. I make sure I really listen to people, remember what matters to them, and stay curious about their lives, she told me. In contrast, her brother, who was more intellectually accomplished but became increasingly isolated after retirement, showed signs of dementia by his early 70s. This pattern is one I've seen repeatedly in my research. Here's why this matters. Humans are fundamentally social creatures, and our brains reflect this. Social interaction is not a luxury, but a cognitive necessity. Complex social engagement requires intense brain activity. You must track conversations, remember personal details, interpret facial expressions, modulate your responses, and integrate new information. These demands create what neuroscientists call positive stress that strengthens neural connections. The research is remarkable. The Harvard study of adult development, which has followed participants for over 80 years, found that the quality of people's social relationships was the strongest predictor of cognitive health in later life. More important than genetics, physical health, or wealth. People with strong social connections at age 50 were less likely to develop dementia, regardless of other risk factors. The impact of social isolation is equally dramatic. Loneliness increases the risk of dementia by 40–50%, comparable to smoking. Or obesity. One study found that lonely adults had twice the rate of cognitive decline as socially connected individuals over a 5-year period. Ask yourself, do I have regular, meaningful interactions with others? Have I maintained friendships where I can be authentic? Am I continuing to develop new social connections as I age? This doesn't mean you need to become an extrovert if you're naturally introverted. Quality matters more than quantity. Research suggests that having just 3 to 5 close relationships and weekly meaningful social interactions provides significant protection. Valuable activities include volunteering, participating in group learning, joining clubs based on interests, regular family gatherings, or even consistent interaction with the same service providers in your community. Remember that social connection isn't just pleasant, it's a biological necessity for brain health, as essential as physical exercise or good nutrition. As we've explored these 6 factors, physical exercise, nutritional intelligence, cognitive challenge, sleep quality, stress management, and social connection, you may have noticed they share a common thread. They're all interconnected, and they're all within your control. The science of brain aging has evolved dramatically in recent years. We now know that cognitive decline isn't inevitable. It's influenced by choices we make every day. The brain remains remarkably plastic throughout life, capable of growing new neurons and creating new connections well into our 90s and beyond. What distinguishes those who stay sharp from those who decline prematurely isn't luck or genetics alone. It's the consistent application of these 6 factors we've discussed. Think of them as the pillars supporting your cognitive health. While one pillar alone might not be enough, together they create a strong foundation for lifelong brain vitality. Remember that it's never too early to start building your cognitive reserve, and it's never too late to see benefits. Small, consistent actions taken today can dramatically alter your brain's trajectory over the coming decades. The gift of longevity is only valuable if those additional years come with mental clarity and purpose. By implementing what you've learned today, you're not just adding years to your life, you're adding life to your years, preserving the essence of who you are well into your later decades. If you found value in this information, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone you care about. Brain health is something that affects us all, and spreading this knowledge could change someone's life. In the comments below, I'd love to hear which of these 6 factors you plan to focus on first, or any questions you have about implementing them in your daily life. Your comments help guide our future content. Don't forget to download our free 30-day Brain Health Challenge guide using the link in the description. This simple plan walks you through implementing all 6 factors in manageable daily steps. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming video on the specific foods with the strongest evidence for brain protection. Thank you for investing this time in your cognitive future. Until next time, remember that your brain's destiny is largely in your hands.